So now you might be thinking, what is this 10th grader doing by talking about women in STEM? She doesn't even have a job. Admittedly, I don't, but what I do have are 3 messages to share with you today. But before I zoom into that, I want to talk about involving everybody in STEM. Currently, STEM is projected to be the fastest growing, best paying, and highest needed fields in this decade and for many more to come. And so, this is what it is made out of: science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But unfortunately, while all these things are happening, something else is also happening. And it is that in this moment of exciting growth, for all of us, future torchbearers, and so on, a major group of us are being left out. And that is young girls and women. Okay, so before I get to my 3 messages, I'd like to tell you my story. So I started out as, through the lens of a young, aspiring engineer. Everything is within the realm of possibility, everything bound to imagination, which is basically countless itself. I started out at an all-girls school before I came to UWC, and what we did is that I co-led a robotics club, and we used Lego Mindstorm sets, like the one in the slide above. And what we did is we used these sets to incorporate it with touch sensors and sound sensors, basically robotics, but at its very most basic level. And what we did was that we participated in competitions and so on. They were very interesting endeavors. But unfortunately, it didn't really gain as much recognition from my peers, say, as I would have wanted in comparison to, say, dance or music. And so conversations kind of stopped. I didn't feel confident about being there. I didn't feel it was right for myself. It felt like a mistake. Going to high school, I took a class called Computer Science in Java, basically learning how to program using Java. And so my friend and I were about 2 girls in a class of about 20. We feel a bit odd, but we're glad to be there. But then all these implicit social messages start to come. And we feel it because even though it is not as obvious, it is not as blatantly obvious, it is kind of, you can sense it in conversation and in our classes. And so, again, it felt like another mistake. And so what I want to share with you today is why I believe, or what motivated me to give this talk, which is to include every one of us, because I truly believe it is in mending the social barriers by changing our mindsets towards it. Now, how do we do that? It is about having the conversations with the person next to you, being members of our communities. I hope we know that when we work together and when we really come together to act, to accelerate social change, that they will happen much faster, far faster than any of the projections or what any of the data is saying. And hopefully we'll move towards a more equal world. Message number 1, the ambition gap. Now, really, I believe that the ambition gap is basically this lack of idealism, or this want to pursue further opportunities or to be leaders in such fields, for example. And more than anything, I believe it is more of our culture than any of our own individual capabilities. It is the implicit messages that our culture sends us. Sadly, gender biases make us inherent possessors of implicit, socially derived judgments that are far-reaching and hurtful, some of the effects of which I felt myself. And so, let's take a look at the data. The graph shows a graph by the Huffington Post showing women in selected STEM occupations. What's weird is that as we see STEM continuously shaping our world, our economy, our societies, and things like that, we're either staying stagnant or we're going in the wrong direction. And why is this? If we again take a look at another piece of data, in middle school, 74% of students say they'd be interested in taking STEM, saying it's an exciting field that they want to be in and they want to be a part of when they grow up. And now let's take a look at high school. In the United States, 0.4% of girls actually end up choosing computer science in high school. And as from the previous talk, I bet all of us know how important computer science and AI is into our future and beyond that. And so what I want us to do is to encourage, because this particularly happens for girls, women, for girls between the ages of 11 to 14, because it is this when they start to feel insecure and start to receive such implicit social messages. I want us to have these conversations because I want to change this perception about the ambition gap, having overcome it. Secondly, overcoming social perceptions and rewriting the dynamics. This is what happens when you type in engineering Google. Wow, we don't see any women there, as you can see. But as you continue to scroll down, it gets a bit better. We see a few faces there, because currently only 1 in 7 of engineers are actually women, and they make up less than 20% of our technology industry today. However, I'm here to tell you because there is hope. There is hope for social change, although it's not easily as quantified as we'd like to be. Last year, a really popular hashtag campaign started, which is hashtag I look like an engineer. This was started by Isis Wenger. She's a software engineer in San Francisco. And so that is her by the Inspire Fest picture. And what I started to do was that I kept following this hashtag. I checked it quite frequently, and I saw what other people were posting. And it's because they felt the same way. When you think of an engineer, there tends to be this kind of stereotype that he is this guy in a hoodie in a basement, but that is certainly not it. Honestly, these are the engineers we see today. Young women and young girls who are encouraged, propelled, fueled, and encouraged to take futures in STEM, to pursue their interests and to stay by it even as they get older, even as they go to high school, even as they receive such social messages, which are often negative. And so along with I Like an Engineer also came other hashtags, such as Women Support Women and hashtag WCW, or Women Crush Wednesday. This is because I find this particularly interesting because studies show that as young women and girls, we often need role models to look up to, people who we can see or we can one day step into their shoes to actually say, I can be like them, I can be one of them. And lastly, one more piece of data. In the year 2015, the pay gap between men and women, it was a ratio of 78 cents to $1. Based on a research published by the BBC, it is going to take 118 years, and I mean until 2133, before we reach $1 to $1. I laugh about this because this is more than my lifetime, probably more than my children's lifetime even. How are we, as people who have the opportunities, as people who have the privileges to pursue such opportunities in STEM, if we don't even set examples as ourselves for other people who maybe don't even have these opportunities? And this is also because as STEM is projected to become one of our biggest fields, women need to receive equal pay for equal work, because I believe it is only when we close that ambition gap, we step up to such leadership positions and we stand by it, that we're able to accelerate such social change. Because if we know that if women come at the top, they're going to create policies that will not only benefit them, but for everybody too. Message number 3, how can we become advocates ourselves? Now, in the past few years, after having kind of gone through this journey, actually, I lead a GC here, a global concerns group, which basically partner with an organization outside of Singapore to support them, and also locally here with UN Women, called Because I'm a Girl GC. So that's one of the ways I'm involved in. But for our audience here, how you can also be involved in is, for example, the UN Women Youth Team, here based in Singapore for the entire Southeast Asia. Next, join a lean-in circle. This movement was started by Sheryl Sandberg, one of my personal role models. And these are basically support groups by which women bring their issues together and they encourage each other to actually bring it forward and propose them. Next, join the movement. There are movements for example, social entrepreneurship programs like Project Inspire, to get women into these, to get young girls interested and to continue to pursue them, like I said, even as they move on to high school and older. Lastly, for the men in this room, if you don't think this is your problem, you better do, because we are inclusive. We are members of our society, of our community, and we all work together. And so if you don't think this is your issue, write a he for she pledge. Join the movement, because this movement needs everybody and anybody involved in it, regardless of age or gender or race. And so I'd like to end with this. It was one of my favorite quotes from one of the people I look up to. I want to remind you to come back through the 3 messages, to put an onus, to have the obligation to know that you are responsible for also accelerating these social changes, to make women be as equally respected and recognized when they go into the workforce, whether it's still in high school or even still middle school where I started. And the quote is this: "We cannot change what we are not aware of. And once we are aware, we cannot help but change." I hope we include all of us into this conversation. I hope we accelerate the social change. And the thing is, these all remain a dream of mine, basically an ambition. It will not remain a reality if we choose to hope for eventually. It cannot be eventually. I choose now. Thank you.